password in here? Oh yeah, it's so I'm on. I'm logged in, and
But now I'm on too.
okay. So why don't you try to get in? Go to your meeting.
I don't know why I had that weird sign. All right. Oh no.
Sorry. Try unmute yourself. So Erica, hey, so here, so on the bottom, so you got the screen, right?
Yep.
It's not, oh, there you go. You're on mute. So you got the, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you got your mute and stop video on your left side.
Yeah, no, I know. I got it. So should I hang up the phone?
Yeah, that's why. Jeez.
I am a techno genius. Okay.
Oh, I can see and live in color. All right. So,
All right. Thank you.
so now, hey, Erica. So now here we go. So at the bottom of your screen, right, you're sitting there and you got the red on your right side to end.
Yeah.
That's like the nuclear button, like when
No,
you're.
I get it. I get that.
All right.
I'm okay, I think. Wait, somebody else is coming on.
Oh, it's
It's Marlene.
Oh, Marlene.
Woo!
Too
Okay.
early.
Wow.
Hi, Marlene. How are you? So wait, no, you got to unmute yourself,
We can't
Marlene.
hear you.
I can't hear you. Oh, I think you got to unmute her.
How was your dinner, David?
My dinner.
Okay, how's that?
All right, that's better. So hey, so listen, so we got to chop because we got to make sure Erica can show her screen, and so I'm giving instructions here. You know, me, Mr. Instructor.
Okay, I didn't know whether you needed me.
We always need you, Marlene.
Yeah,
I need both of you. I'd be lost without you.
give us
I was in such a panic because I
Erica,
couldn't get
focus.
on.
Erica, focus.
Yes.
Focus.
Yes, Eric. How about if I get off so Erica will focus on you, David, and not me?
How about, hey, you want to play a joke, Marlene? How about if we both get off?
Okay, so share.
All right.
Share the.
So at the bottom, so go on that share screen and then click in the middle of it.
Yes. Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
I have no idea. Yeah, but you want to be able to share your screen, so maybe double click on it and see if that does any different.
Oh, wait, somebody's here.
Yeah, that's what. Hey, don't worry about that. We got 5 minutes to get you to screen share, or else it's me.
Oh, there's Mitchell. Hi, Mitchell.
Erica, focus.
Yes. Okay. David, it's not letting me do anything because it says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Hold on, let me see if I can do it. Yeah, you see, I'm for some reason watch. Maybe it's me. Maybe because I'm the host. Can you see
wow.
But you're the host, David.
Oh, that's
screen
why.
sharing.
You know why? Because I think I signed in first.
So you.
So hang on, Marlene. Just hang on. Just bear with me.
It says, oh no, this is so weird. It's got the launch meeting page like frozen as it's going down. It's just like a mess.
Oh, don't worry about that.
Really?
See if I can be the unmesser. Oh, here he goes. It's just, I've got excuse me, Mitchell and Randy and Marlene. This is really always David's fault, whatever happens.
Well, I sent everybody their own link in
All right,
case
so
for
can you see it?
technical difficulties.
So can you see the slideshow now?
No.
No, it's not taking it off.
You can't see the slideshow?
No.
What do you guys have for your page now?
Oh.
I'm frozen in a weird way.
Weird.
Yeah, it is an interesting look.
Oh, you have it
That's kind of
too?
cool.
Let's try this again. Let me
Okay.
try. Hey, Erica, let me try it again. All right, here we go. Now try. Now, is that?
Yeah.
There
Ah,
it is.
Okay.
Cool.
You know what I realized? I didn't even print out an agenda, but okay. I'll
Well,
just deal with that. Hold on. Wow. Who is calling? Oh, this is recording us. Do you realize it's recording us?
Yeah.
that's good.
Oh my God, 25 slides. So Marlene, this is yours, right?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So I think
Why is that ringing?
we're fine. We got 4 minutes left, and I have 2/3 of a Hebrew National hot dog with mustard and ketchup to finish. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to.
Go right ahead.
Let's
Be our
see.
guest.
I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna stop my video. So you'll just have to make something up for ANC3F.
Okay, now,
You should have your name on it, David.
How about we'll strive for that next meeting. You know what I love about this committee? I think this committee has a sense of humor.
really?
Yes.
Okay,
Or maybe more precise, members of this committee have a sense of humor.
Okay.
yes, I think that is more accurate, okay. Okay. Boy, like I'm just so unnerved by these techno challenges all the time. So then I realized I forgot to print something out, but my printer doesn't work. So, okay. So I'm just going to turn it over to you all for the meeting, and we'll call it a meeting, okay?
Sounds good.
Um, well, I mean, we'll definitely do the first part of the meeting, Erica, but then you
Okay.
have to tune back in.
Hey, Erica,
Yes.
isn't it? There's 3 parts. You have a presentation.
Yeah, that's going to be the highlight.
You have a presentation.
Yep.
You've got these wonderful committees that are, kind of taking over tasks, as you reminded me on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I think there's some announcements, and then
Yep.
and then as you may remember, I want to at least raise the question of the budget, the FY22 DC city budget vis-a-vis the parks, the
Yep.
Parks and Rec department and the Department of Energy and Environment. So I think that's it. And then there's an adjourn.
Okay. Wait,
Well,
hold on one second.
okay.
Erica, where are you going?
She's leaving.
Marlene, we try to clear our committee chairs. So Marlene, you're up first, right?
Yes, and I can start anytime.
And are there any introductions that we need to do? We've got 8 people on the call, and let's see, gallery view. We've got Erica, David, Marlene, Mitchell, Judy, Barbara's iPhone, Randy Clark, and then there's a Marjorie, and then Randy Clark.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Everybody
you
knows
all?
everybody, right? More or less.
Yeah, I think we all know each other
All right.
Yeah,
So
by this point, and it's a nice
and
small group.
if I see. Me.
I'm going to go on mute.
Oh, there's Marjorie.
Oh, should we
I'm-
all be on mute?
So should we just start?
You know what? Maybe it's 7 o'clock. Should we give folks a minute, or should we just like be punctual?
I'm all for being punctual.
Okay,
I'm ready to start.
Sandy.
Okay.
All right, so
All
you
right.
know who we don't have though? We don't have Corey yet, who is our secretary.
Well, you have a recording, so don't worry about it.
Okay,
She can check the recording.
okay. I didn't get confirmation from her, so anyway, but she
So,
was,
so David, you want to put up the presentation?
All right, ready or not? Here we
yeah,
go.
I guess we're just beginning. We're just getting right into it. And Marlene has a presentation along with Mitchell Bear.
Yes.
So can you see this? You can see
The screen is shared. It's a miracle.
I'm just
Yes,
I just wanted
absolutely.
to check
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
All right,
let's hear it.
all right.
Yeah, that.
So Mitch, who basically put this proposal together, and he actually moved to DC 2 years ago and is an avid hiker and has worked 20 years with the Capitol Hiking Club. And 5 years ago, he did trail patrol and maintenance for the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club in the Shenandoah, and is now the head of trail maintenance for Soapstone and a portion of Western Ridge Trail. So welcome, Mitch. And
Thank you.
thank you for putting this proposal together. And so why don't I just go in? First of all,
So Marlene, just one little thing. You need to tell me when to change the slide.
oh, I can't change it. Okay, go to the next slide.
Okay, hold on. Oh. See it?
No. Oh,
No,
wait a minute. No.
Oh, that's weird. So it's not sharing now?
no, I mean, we have it shared. It's just the slide isn't moving.
How about now? It's moving on my screen.
Really?
Yep.
It's not moving
Oh,
on
it's not
ours.
moving on mine.
That says shared as pause. Bring your window to the front. I'm not sure why that is. Oh, God. Hold on. Let's start over again. All right, here we go. Ready?
Okay.
Perfect.
Ah,
Now you
okay.
should be able to do it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, David. Next slide.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. What a techno genius. Okay.
Yeah. So, just a little bit background on Linian Stream itself. Linian and Broad Branch were both two daylighted stream projects that were completed in 2014, and they were really big projects and have been very popular with the neighborhood. It is a project of the Department of Energy and the Environment, and then it was just DOE, not DOEE, with a large portion of the funding coming from the federal government. It's a prize-winning project. It has been covered by the National Geographic, and it was designed by Kevin Donnelly of Stantec, and Keith Underwood, who is wonderful, was the contractor. Now, the big issue of many projects is maintenance. And like many projects, it does not have a maintenance budget. So, David, can we go to the map now?
That'd be next slide, right?
Yeah. So this is kind of in the middle. That green portion in the middle is Lincoln Park. So it is actually DC land totally. It's under the Department of Parks and Recreation. It is unlike Broad Branch, which is what I call a real stream. This is a water runoff stream. Linian is a water runoff stream. And it actually goes under Linian, which is, I guess it's hard to see, but it's the long gray road that's going north and south on this. And it goes underneath Linian and goes and meets up with Broad Branch Stream, kind of midway.
So the water flows from south to north.
The water always flows downhill. So this
Yep.
goes from Broad Branch Terrace
But
to,
what's the north direction here?
So if I can jump in, so you're looking, essentially, this is
it's the north direction is the top
straight
of the screen, the south is the bottom, west,
to the left,
the left, and
east to the right.
is the right.
So the Linian stream, when it's flowing, is flowing northward.
Right, it's going towards Harrison.
Right, but it's also downhill.
Yeah.
Well, it's all streams flow downhill.
Correct. Is that David? Hi,
Next
David.
slide. Yeah, right. I can take a hint.
So, this was, it probably was even more than a 10-year. It was a 10-year in design phase project. And as I said before, their maintenance is a question mark. Last year, DOEE had a contractor, Daylily, come out and clean it up on one of the trails. I recruited a Pinehurst neighbor who took an interest in both streams, who was doing invasive removal. We did the Forest Hills Connection did a post on him, John Burwell. And he has agreed to do a lot of to pull his group together. He has a band, who I call the Band of Merry Weed Whackers. They do invasive removal, and they've been working very hard at Broad Branch. In fact, they were out today, and they've done some work at Linian as well. I had been noticing that the trail at Linian was really getting degraded because of it was being getting washed out by a lot of the rain that we were having. And I contacted Steve Sari of DOEE, and he put me in touch with Cecilia Lane, and she made a commitment that DOEE would provide materials or pay for the materials if we could put together a group of people who would do the work. So I had met Mitch Bear on Soapstone Trail, and I thought, well, maybe he might be interested. So I contacted Mitch, and he has been very interested, and he said he would pitch in. And he put this PowerPoint presentation together and has been out at Linian Stream, I don't know how many hours, kind of putting this project together. I'm also trying to get UDC involved as a possible partner in this. And also the Rock Creek Conservancy has done cleanups, and we do want to do a cleanup here in March, but that's kind of separate. So those are other partners. And Cecilia Lane, who said she was going to be on this, she's also working on a tree component, which is separate with the Department of Parks and Recreation for this area, because trees really kind of mop up a lot of water. So now we're going to get into the construction phase of this project. And Mitch, why don't you take it from here?
Okay.
You want the map of the project?
Yep, that one's perfect, Dave. And I'll tell you when to move forward when we need to. I want to thank you all very much for the invitation to come, and I look forward to working with you on this project as much as I'll be around. I've told Marlene that I do have a family commitment in Portland, Oregon, that's going to take me away for a good part of the next 3 to 4 months, but I will be in touch with you guys so I can at least talk to you from where I am and see how the project's going. What I tried to do here is indicate that there are actually 2 trails in Linian Park. One is the lower one, which I call Trail B, but only because when I drew this map, it was A on the left side and B on the right side. And Trail B is the one that tends to be more traveled now, partly because it's well established and there's less impediments to use the trail. Trail A actually is a pretty nice trail too. It flows along the, I call it the left side of the park because I'm looking down slope on it. And you can see here that I put in the major areas of the two trails. On Trail B, there's a footbridge that is in the first lower curve of it that has been actually made by splitting a very, very big tree in half and lowering it into place. And beyond that, to the right on this picture, there's a tree that's down in the trail. On the Trail A, the major piece of impediment is a very heavy concentration of down brush and a few trees. Dave, could you go to the next slide, please?
Sure.
Now, what we're trying to do is several things. The park is downslope of the Kuwaiti, I think it's an embassy, but that property. And we have very, very heavy runoff coming off of that property. John and I were there when the snow that we had 2-3 weeks ago was melting. And it was producing a river, which you'll see the erosion caused, was the result of it, coming down from that Kuwaiti property. And it comes down in 3 or 4 different places, so that we're going to try to minimize the impact. I should have said, we're not going to minimize the runoff, but we're going to minimize the impact of it. And we're trying to shunt the runoff from that terrain down towards the creek as opposed to down the trail itself. So that'll lead to better water management in the both the upper part of the trail and the lower part, which we will again have to shunt some standing water towards the creek. As I mentioned, we'll be cutting and removing one of the large down trees that is now in the way of Trail B. You can walk over it, but it should be out of the way so people can just walk on the trail. As I mentioned before, there's a great deal of blowdown and debris on Trail A that needs to be removed, making it almost impassable except to the people who really want to get through that side of it. We'll also, as I mentioned, deal with some of the muddy areas on Trail A and Trail B. And what we're also proposing is better signage, so people know that they're coming to Linian Park and that there are 2 trails, and we'll try to mark the trails a little bit better so people know where they are. Dave, can you go to the next one, please?
Yep.
All right, what you now have is a series of photos that I took one day when I was out there. And these will show you kind of the high points for the trail. This one actually is right at the point where the 2 trails will split. So where the orange flags are, we'll have a sign that will say Trail A to the left and Trail B to the right. Now, I'm not calling these 2 trails A and B. You guys can call it whatever you want. I mean, I just do it as a convenience of being able to separate the 2 of them. Now you can see on the right-hand side next to where the sign will be, there's a very rocky area. That now is not where the trail starts. The trail starts a little bit further upslope and to the right-hand side there, but it goes through an area that is very, very muddy and will stay very, very muddy, very steep relative to where this rocky area is. And what we're going to propose is that this rocky area be, the rocks be moved away and that some gravel be put
David,
in.
go to the next
there.
slide. That's it. You
Dave,
need,
go to the next one, please. Yeah, right here. Thank you, Marlene, for that. what will happen here is on the right-hand side is where the existing trail is, and we're going to move one of the big stones from where it is to close that gap between the rock and the trunk areas, so people don't go down that side. But on the left-hand side of the picture, where that rocky area is, it'll be a gravel trail that will have people move down. Next slide, please, Dave. Okay, now this is the start of Trail B, and what you'll see here is a number of flags on either side of the trail. Right at that shadow of that tree, you can see two flags. They're generally about 6 feet apart from one another. There are two terms that we're going to use here this evening and throughout the discussion of this project: water bars and check dams. Water bars are devices to move water off of the trail and will be set at an angle to the trail as the trail falls down the slope. Check dams are used to control some erosion and some water, but not the principal responsibility of the check dam is to do that. It's to give people something to step down on as opposed to just moving down the slope. And it does control some erosion, so that we're using both the ability to move water away from the trail with the water bars and to hold what water's coming down and what debris and eroded materials come down by the check dams. And there'll be somewhere between 20 and 22, 24 of these devices in the trail. Dave, go to the next one, please. Okay, now here you can see generally how the water bars will work. In the center of the picture are two flags on either side of the trail again, and they're at an angle to the trail. And this is where the lumber will come in and be called a water bar. It'll be placed in a trench that will be dug between these two flags. We'll be using 6x6 material, 10 to 12 feet in length. It'll be number 2, so it'll be resistive to rotting and water damage for about 20 or 25 years, I think the guarantee is. The trench will be dug such that about 3 inches of this 6x6 will be above the trench itself. The 6x6 will have 2 holes drilled on either end of it, where a piece of rebar will go pounded into the ground so that those water bars will not move for decades. It'll be in there really, really firm. The soil will be put into the trench, and we'll put the 6x6 in place, and will be smooth from the upslope area and the downslope area to make it a very small step over for anyone hiking, but enough of a lip so that it'll be moving that water from, in this case, from left to right, from the slope on the left of the picture down towards the creek on the right. So what we now will have a series of more pictures of some more check dams and water bars. Dave, next slide, please. Okay, here we have a number. You can see in this picture the erosion, the heavy erosion that has started to degrade the trail itself. Some of it due to the water that came off that slope off to the upper left-hand side during that runoff period 2 to 3 weeks ago. Dave, the next one, please. Here you can see again the erosion in the middle of the picture, caused entirely by that runoff 2 to 3 weeks ago. You can see the property up to the upper left-hand side. You can see in the foreground here 2 flags, and this will be another place where you'll see another water bar, and you can see how that will be on an angle to the trail itself and pushing the water from the left-hand side down to the right-hand side, where There's a little bit of a gully already formed there by the lower flag, and that is a little bit of a rivulet that will be going down towards the creek. Next one, please. This is the bridge that is now in place, the footbridge that's now in place. There is a pond to the left-hand side of this bridge that collects water, and it flows, it used to flow when this was first produced under the bridge, the footbridge, to the larger pond that's located off to the right-hand side of this picture. Over the years, it's gotten sediment in and a lot of debris clogging this particular footbridge. And what we're proposing is that the channel that is now clogged be dug out from both the upslope side and the downslope side to make the water flow a little bit better under this footbridge. It's now running reasonably well, but it still needs to be dug out. We'll have people who will have to go in there and just poke a bar or shovel in there and pull out some sediment. Dave, next one, please. Now, further down the trail here, we've had several other either check dams or water bars, but we've gotten now to the point where we've got this major tree that has fallen on the trail. And what we intend to do here is cut about a 5 or 6 foot portion between these two flags and make the trail passable as opposed to somebody have to go over it. Now, I want to point out here another water management proposal that we're going to be doing in here. Between the tree in the foreground and the hump that's a little bit further in the background, there's a low area which you actually can see by the shine of the water that's kind of in the middle of the photo. What we intend to do here is actually build a footbridge.
David, slide, next slide.
Next slide.
Oh,
That'll look something like what we've got here. And this is made of 4x4s, 2x4s, and 4x4s. And it'll sit such that if you go back, Dave, just for a second, please. It'll fit between the down tree, or which will not be dragged down, it'll be cut through, and that small hump in the foreground there. Dave, go on, please. So the footbridge won't look exactly like this one. This one is from another park here in DC. We probably won't have 3 pieces. We may only have 2 pieces, but it'll look something like this. It'll take the hikers above the muddy area and allow that water to flow under it. The length of this will be about 20 feet between that tree trunk and that hump. Next slide, please, Dave. Further down the trail, we'll have 2 trenches that will be dug, again, to bring water from the right-hand side of this picture to the left-hand side of the picture, from the uphill side down to the creek. And we'll actually pull water from all sides of it down. So this area that's now muddy will dry out because it'll have a trench down it. Next slide, Dave, please.
and
Okay, now this is at the Linnean Avenue side, and this is that other sign that we will have going off to Trail A, which is to the right, and Trail B, which is to the left. Go on to the next slide, please, Dave. Now we're going to be going down Trail A, which was to the left-hand side here. Another slide.
So people aren't confused. We're back at Broad Branch Terrace, looking down.
Right. Thank you, Marlene, for your help.
Okay.
Dave, next slide. Now, this trail hasn't been used very much, and so it'll have to be swept so that the trail is a little bit discernible. And you can see that if you know what you're looking for, you can see that straight through that big tree and the smaller one on the right, the trail moves down there and then it glides out to the right. Next slide, please. Now this, believe it or not, is where you've got a lot of muddy area. This is an example of what's happening on Trail A, but I think that once we sweep it, the water won't collect as much. Next slide, please,
So
Dave.
Mitch, will you explain what you mean by sweep?
What I mean by sweep is to literally take a rake and sweep the debris off of the trail to make it more apparent where the trail is.
Okay.
And so we're basically trying to at least identify where it is. So we'll sweep maybe a 4 or 5 foot section of it going down. Next one, Dave, please. This is the area where the blowdowns and the debris have accumulated on Trail A, and this can be taken out with crosscut saws or regular saws or chainsaws, depending upon what we want to do. But you can almost see that the trail goes through this debris and then it comes out on the other side at the top of the picture. Dave, next one. This is the Linnean Avenue side of Trail A, and you can again see where the trail generally goes. It'll head towards that log that is on the ground there, and then turn to the right, so it comes out on the road. Next one, Dave.
Is that a pipe under the street?
Go back to that one, Dave.
Is that
Yeah,
a pipe under?
Yeah, that's a drainage pipe there. So the creek comes down into that drainage pipe. It's actually in pretty good shape there. There isn't much debris behind that pipe. And it
That's where it's goes underground and then meets with Broad Branch Lighted Stream on the other side. It goes quite a distance.
And Mitch, another question. When the sweeping has been done and the trails surfaces are more exposed, does that increase the danger or the risk of erosion?
That's a good question. In some areas it might, but in all probability it won't. In an area like this where we're looking, the ground is fairly flat. If it's any slope, it's sloping down towards the road. And we may get a little bit of muddy here, but we will have to wait and see what happens. I can't predict because here it's a little bit tough to know exactly how the water is going to flow and how the trail will be worn down by hikers using it.
If you get a muddiness problem, would you think of adding gravel on top the way you did other places or not?
Well, the first thing I might do is I might start putting in a few of these little trenches that will go perpendicular to the trail. That will be areas to collect some water and move it away from the trail. The next thing I would do is possibly put down a little bit of gravel on it if necessary. It's hard to predict this because it hasn't been used very much, and you have to wait till you see how it's being trampled down, basically, or worn down as hikers use it. This is one of the good examples of where the trail will need not constant, but regular maintenance. For Soapstone or Western Ridge, I have to go out there maybe once a month to do some minor maintenance on it. And for this, we'll have to walk it from time to time also, just to see whether things have to be done. And we can catch it early here if we go and do those regular maintenance walks on it.
Mitch, are you planning, like, while you're out there with the chainsaws and you're moving all the blowdowns, maybe to just maybe help with the erosion, putting some of those branches to the sides, lining kind of the trail? It might help demarcate. I don't know.
And that's another good suggestion, and that is one that we do.
Yeah.
In fact, where we had that very big blowdown on Trail B that we were going to cut a 5-foot section, what we would do with that is, instead of just tossing it aside, we'd actually turn it parallel to the trail, so that it's a kind of a guardrail, if you want to call it that, for
Right.
people not going into that muddy area that was located just beyond it and to the right. So that's something that we do with blowdown material and other logs that we get, in the area.
Great. Awesome.
Next one, Dave. Okay, this is kind of a rough list of the team responsibilities for the project. I've already started talking with Marlene about what materials we need. I've put together a general shopping list and even costed it out, and I will get to that in a minute. Marlene has indicated that we're going to commission the 5 signs for the entrances and the trails, individual trails. As Marlene mentioned, John will provide manpower and some equipment. We're hoping that DC will come in and help us move those rocks at the trailhead for B that need to be moved from generally the left side to the right side, and move some of those other smaller rocks away from the area where we now see them at the top of the trailhead for B. Landscaping needs, again, Marlene has indicated that DC will come in and do some planting of trees. Oversight of the project, Marlene, and for the time I'm away, I can still help out. But I have a friend of mine, Scott Schroth, whose name is down there as advisory role, who's agreed to come down and do a little bit of supervision of the project too, just at least initially, to make sure people understand how to put in the water bars and the check dams, and just he's walked the trail with me once, and he'll be at your service. I nominally designed this project, but I think that it was also, I had a lot of help from Marlene and from John and from Scott, and so my name's there, but it's just because I didn't want to put 3 or 4 people. Dave, next slide, please. Now, this is the materials and estimated costs. And I may be a little bit long on the amount of materials, but we'll have to see exactly how things pan out after we've gotten the initial check dams and water bars in there to see whether we need anything more. I'm costing this out for 24 of the water bars and check dams. You can see that it's #2 timber, and it's $1,700. And then there's rebar, commissioning of the signs, have another 1,000. The rock and gravel, I don't know how much that's going to be, because we're hoping that maybe DC will be good, and as it plants some trees, they'll help us with the gravel that we need. We need some timbers for and planks for that footbridge that's going to be between that opening that's going to be cut and that berm. Miscellaneous materials, delivery charges, it comes down to about $3,400. Now, that's an approximation. I think that it'll be really close, but it's hard to know until you really get into it whether anything else is needed. I think that if anything, that's pretty close to the ballpark. Next one, Dave.
Hey, Mitch, this is Erica. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're running a little late, so and we have some other stuff to get through. So if you could just finish up in a few minutes, if that's possible.
Well,
I
actually,
think we're at the last slide.
we're at the last slide, Erica, and I'm sorry that I've gone long.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
The timing for the project is to be determined when you guys have the money and the manpower, and we go out and get the materials and stuff. In talking with Dave, he felt that he would need somewhere between 3 and 5 days with 4 to 5 volunteers. And if we can get the signage by October, maybe we'll have the park completed by, late summer or whatever. And that's my presentation. I'll answer any questions or turn it over to Marlene and to you, Erica, and to move forward.
Thank you. I just had a quick question, which is, so it's $4,000, but where, is there any commitment for money from anybody, or do we need to raise it, or how would that work?
So DDOT, in the beginning of the presentation, DDOT's made the commitment that it would provide the materials or provide the, I'm not sure how, what that means, but that's where things still stand. So it was really, they would provide materials. We put together a budget of what materials we want.
Mhm.
And we provide the manpower. The signage is a bit more complicated. I spoke to Cecilia Lane this afternoon, and it has to go through a lot of rigmarole, bureaucratic stuff, hurdles. So, that might be $1,000 they will spend because they have, whatever. I mean, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah,
But
it
the
doesn't seem
sign-
that necessary, the signage, actually.
Yeah, I mean, we do, she agreed that they want signage. It's just a matter of who and how and when. So,
Okay.
So
Right.
this has to approve the signage, is what you're saying?
Marlene, may I jump in here?
Sorry.
yeah.
This is Cecilia Lane from
Oh,
DOE.
Cecilia, okay, I didn't see you were on.
Sorry about that. I was a few minutes late. Apologies, everyone. Thanks for that great presentation, Mitch. I just had a couple of comments, but I didn't want to derail your larger agenda. So please let me know if this is an appropriate time to speak on this, or if you, okay. So just regarding the financial commitment, we have committed to paying for the materials. What's challenging is procurement. So we don't have a couple places I've heard where you're looking for additional support in terms of labor. We don't have a contract that we can currently that we can access for that. So we can pay for materials, but we cannot pay for the labor. That's a really important distinction. Regarding the
The
science.
labor is volunteer, Cecilia.
Right. I just wanted to make that distinction to Mitch because I think a couple of times looking for things like moving stones or bringing in gravel, that would be, that's something we're going to have to figure out how we can do that. Because without having an existing contract in place,
Okay.
there's no mechanism for doing that. Basically, what I have is a credit card. So if you're looking for materials, and I appreciate you pricing it out, I can purchase those on your behalf. And so we'll just talk about that. Regarding signage, I would say we take that off the table. DOEE is interested in developing the signage. We would do that in-house. We would pay for that separately. In addition, I'd have to negotiate with DPR on that effort. Has the DPR Trails rep been engaged on this effort to date?
No,
Okay, so I'm going to bring that person into the fold
Okay.
just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Couple of places where we talked about basically shunting the stormwater back into the stream, especially on that slide where it says trenches. Just be aware that some of those mounds were intentionally created as part of the project to allow water to back up behind them and create a wetland environment so that there would be better floodplain interaction. So we are actually not trying to get that water off the path as quickly as possible. We really wanted to hang out in those areas and promote groundwater infiltration. So let's just touch base on that design. And then, yeah, I guess the one other unknown that I have is Trail A, as it was referred to, what was west of the stream. It's not clear to me that that was an intentional trail from the project beginning. So I just need to touch base with the original project manager and make sure that that's a trail that we are trying to establish. I know at the upper portions, it looks like a trail, but I just wasn't clear on that from the plans set that I've seen. So anyway, I just wanted to confirm that DOE is committed to paying for the materials of this. It's just figuring out how we're getting it implemented is the big unknown, which we're working on.
Thank you.
You're not opposed to signage, you just need to do that in-house and you will also pay for that.
Right, it'll have to go through the mayor's office for approval. It'll have to go through DOEE. It'll have to go through DPR. It's a very bureaucratic process, but I've put out a message to my supervisor to find out if this is something that we will pursue, and I can get back to you on that.
Got it.
Great.
Question, only a comment, Mitch, just a comment. It'll have, but is it necessary to have, based on what DOE just said, is it necessary to have 2 trails? And that's just, you can deal with that later. I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
No, it's not necessary, but when I've walked the trails, it looked like there was a trail, 2 trails there. And that's why we proposed it that way. But if you guys don't want two trails, it's really easy not to do anything with that second one. And, you know, we'll just leave it wild and not worry about it. There was at one time a discussion that I was part of trying to take the load, if you call it, the number of hikers and put them on two trails instead of one. But again, you guys tell me whether it's one trail or two, and we can have both sides developed or not.
Might just become a de facto trail, which often happens, right?
Well, I mean, in the beginning, there was a trail there. I mean, because I would walk it. I mean, it was a clear trail. So.
But I
And
think
another,
Cecilia's right. We need to go back to the development of the park itself years ago and see what the intent was of the first people who put it together. That if they wanted two trails, that's one thing. If they only wanted one, that's fine with me.
on another ecological subject, are mosquitoes a problem down there now, or is that no longer the case?
So the water's moving, David. So when you have moving water, you do not have mosquitoes.
Right. But when, you know, before all of this project was done, when I used to go down there, mosquitoes were a huge problem. And I'm just asking whether they've been gotten rid of.
Well, I will tell you this, that where the footbridge is, we're encouraging us to dredge underneath it to move the water from the pond on one side down to the main creek itself. That conduit under that footbridge was badly dammed up when I went out there the first time this year and started dredging it out myself. And so I could see why you would have mosquitoes there in the past, because that water on that upslope side of the footbridge wasn't moving very fast down underneath the footbridge. And what I'm saying is that when you reestablish that channel, you'll have movement of water and you won't have a pond there where mosquitoes can
And is there enough moving, is there enough flow of water to give you habitat for toads and frogs, or none of that?
No, I
Oh,
think,
it's great. It's absolutely fabulous. There are lots of frogs there.
There
yeah,
are-
I think
yeah.
I think you'll be able to keep that. I think that you just will increase the flow a little bit.
No,
so
no, that's
you-
good, that's good.
We need
They
to
love-
I think we need to hand over the meeting to Erica at this point.
Yep.
Unless,
Thank you, Mitch and Marlene. That's great. That's
I'm
really,
sorry.
that's exciting. A
Okay.
nice-
Hi, Mitch, it's Lois. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so now we have, I don't know, 35 minutes to go through updates. So if people can keep it to like 5 minutes, if possible, maybe there are no updates and maybe there's a lot. So anyway, we'll just aim to get through the updates by 8:30 or 8:20 because we have other announcements. So Soapstone.
I don't have a lot on Soapstone. That's new since the last meeting. I believe at the last meeting I reported that DC Water had been in contact with my building, the Van Ness East building, which is on the south end of the Soapstone Park. They had told us that the project was due to start in August of this year and would go for about 2 years. They would need access to our property for about a week during that time to put some of the tubing into the sewer project. The last I've heard is an inquiry. They seem to have some bidders out interested in the project. They're doing site visits, and they'd asked for access to our property, among others, I assume. I haven't got a further update as to whether or not that has been scheduled. I will try to follow up. I don't have anything further.
That was so concise. Thank you.
Guys, is good.
Mine will be equally concise because our sewer pipe goes into the same manhole area that Van Ness East, where Judy is. I just want to very quickly, and I'll say it very quickly. finish out my discussion about the Howard Law School. I know it was scattered the last time, but I just want to say, you know, with 38 years of land use planning career and 2 urban and regional planning degrees, I thought, well, you know, should I say anything? And I didn't know. I'm not connected to anybody, including the gentleman, Milton Shinberg. So what I did, though, I have been doing is going back, listening to ANC 3F's meetings about it, going back and reading things, going back to the hearings from the Committee of the Whole. And 2 days I was going through and listening to various people talking about it, and you know, specifically where Milton Shinberg and ANC 3F testified and so forth. But I just want to point out one thing, and then I'm going to stop, and I'm going to have to pop off because we have a board meeting tonight, and there's 2 topics I want to listen to. What I want to say quickly is that at the final day, there were 2 days of testimony. The final day, the final minutes, the minutes was an exchange between Phil Mendelson and the planning director, Andrew Trueblood. And the exchange was specifically those last few sentences, and the last day on the last few sentences was about Howard University. And Phil Mendelson kind of opined, not kind of, he opined that why don't we keep Howard Law School as it is institutional until they develop their plan. And Andrew Trueblood, and I was trying to take notes about what he said, and it was sort of like, what did he say? And that final, that exchange was that sentence of Phil Mendelson, that statement, and the final thing that Phil Mendelson said was, that doesn't help me. And I agree with that. What the planners did on that site doesn't help me either. It should have been left institutional. I still hope it does. It's my understanding in calling Phil Mendelson's office that they have not addressed this yet. Maybe somebody knows more, but I understand they're behind in dealing with the comprehensive plan. So that's all I want to say, but I just wanted to say that, well, the final thing is that, you know, the planners should have thought better of it, really thought it through clearly, and they didn't. For whatever reason, they didn't, and it's unfortunate. So that's it, and I just want to say that I will get the test kits for the from the Isaac Walton League, I hope, and just though, even though it hasn't rained or snowed, there still may be salt in there from all the runoff still, that if we get a reading of it. But you saw the readings from the stream Melvin Hazen and up Broad Branch. One place was pretty high. They were all over 200 ppm, I guess is the word phrase. And usually normal for a natural stream is from 0 to 100 ppm. So we do have high salt content. And then to also let you know that I'm hoping that I will continue this year collecting water samples for the Anacostia River Keepers. Obviously, if they're starting construction for for the soapstone collection of water, we'll probably stop in July, so we won't have any figures beyond that. I assume we won't be able to get in there, and they may stop it. So that's it on that front. And Judy has more connections than I do about she must have more discussions with the city about DC Water about the comings and goings of the actual work being done. But we do have a dog in that fight. It's not a fight, but because our sewer line goes directly to connects, here's Van Ness East and here's R, and it goes in the same thing that they're gonna reline or line. So our manager is informed, and we'll be connecting then with Van Ness East on that. Thank you. And I'm going to have to pop off to hear the discussion, 2 topics at my board meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you next time. So Corey,
Yes, hi.
hi, how are you?
Excellent.
Really good.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Let's keep it as quickly as possible. Hearst Pool and Park, they're a little bit behind schedule as far as what I know from the last time that we went and met in person, and they gave us all their updates and said that they're going to finish the field by the end of January, and then it was February, but the field is in progress. I took a picture. I don't need to share it with everybody because it's just going to take more time, but basically there's—
That's okay. Do you want to share it?
All right, hold on. Let me, I don't know
Can
how
you
to—
hold it up?
I know, right? It's on my screen. I like need
Oh,
to—
all right.
forget it. Let's not do that. Anyway, there is sod on the field. There's sod on the field. It's not the whole field. And there was an area that was, you know, again, had some water pooling in the northwest corner where there always has been some water. And when we addressed it with DGS and DPR, the response was, you know, the drainage system has, the stormwater drainage system has not been fully installed. That's just from the recent snow. It's going to be solved. And we're like, okay. So right now, like as of today, there's some black matting, and then they're putting gravel on top, and then they're putting soil and dirt on top, and then they're putting the sod on top. So it's like a leveled thing where it's supposed to like drain down. So there are still areas where there are puddles just from, I don't know, six days ago, last time it was wet, that haven't dried up, but they're about to, hopefully during this dry spell, put the rest of it down, because they've only done the sod and everything in layers in the center of the field. But the concrete sidewalks and the non-concrete sidewalks and the trails that are supposed to be going around the field, they're all going in, and it looks nice. It looks promising. So, and all of the underground drainage, like the foundational drainage that's supposed to be going in along the slope, there's a slope down and there's a wall and a sidewalk on top of that. And that's what, there's drainage underneath that's supposed to be taking it away from the park. So hopefully that will work out. But it's supposed to open on April 1st. I know sod takes 3 weeks before you're supposed to walk on it. So unless they get the rest of the grass on yesterday, they're not really going to be on time, but they might open it anyway. That said, I know that last time when we talked to Celia, and I don't know if you had anything else to say about, I mean, I know there was a stream study that was going on that might've been finished, and it was supposed to be finished in March, like a mapping of historic streams. Do you remember talking about that?
I do, thank you. I believe we just received the internal review version, and I believe legal said that it is okay for us to release it, but I'm not the project manager, so let me circle back with him and see if he will allow us. I mean, I'm sure that once legal gave us the clearance, that the next step is to put it on a public-facing platform.
Right.
But let me find out what those next steps are and report out to you. So
Yeah.
anyway, I did take a look at that, and you know, it's exactly what you would expect. You know, it's basically the conversion of a historic stream maps, right, at different times into a GIS layer. So you'll see a lot of streams sort of in the same area, right, which is likely one of the streams. And that's all it is we're simply digitizing historic maps. So I think that that's how legal was able to give it a pass. I'm not sure what the public facing version will look like. Let me get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all really for Hearst. So.
Thank you. Do you want to do Melvin Hazen? Because
Yeah,
I think Marlene is through with Linnaean.
Oh, okay, great. Yes. I guess I go back to Cecilia on that. Sorry. Just, I think the last time we talked, we also said that Melvin Hazen was going to be restored eventually, but we needed to move ourselves up on the list, and we were going to talk about how we could get ourselves moved up on the list.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad that we're talking about that again. So I did inquire about Melvin Hazen. It is on the short list for funding. However, we have a couple other stream restorations in front of it that we are still grappling to fund. So I would say, given our shortages in staff and shortages in funding, it's at least 2 years out to begin that effort. It's like I said, it's in the queue. It's relatively high ranked for EPA funds. So when we get enough district funds to match the EPA funds and we have the staff to manage it, we can move forward with it. So probably 2 years out from the start of planning.
Is that, and it has to come from the district? It can't come from like Rock Creek Conservancy or other like private donors?
I can look into that, but what they're looking for is a match. So it's usually a 55 45 match, I think. No, do I have that, if I have that right? So basically, we would get a huge grant from EPA to restore the stream, but we have to put forward a certain amount of matching funds. We typically get the matching funds from our stormwater enterprise fee, or basically what you're paying on your impervious surface in the district. Sometimes we're able to utilize the bag bill funding. Sometimes we're able to use another source of funding as well. So it's just a question of whether or not we have that money. Melvin Hazen, I'm not quite sure what the cost estimate is for that, but I know right now we're currently working on Fort DuPont, which is east of the river, and Pinehurst, which is a close to 8,000 linear foot stream restoration, which will be up next. So most of our available funds are going to those two projects right now.
Okay, thanks for the update.
Sure. Mhm.
Good, thank you.
I'd be happy to ask that question. I believe match is match wherever it comes from. It just has to be non-federal match in order to match the EPA funds. But let me ask that question. I just imagine it would be a large chunk of change.
Yeah, totally. Understand. Thank you. That's all for me.
Lori, you set?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
And on top of watchdogging those two projects, you take notes at the meeting, so thank you for that. Barbara, on the Connecticut Ave streetscape. Is Barbara there?
She's got to unmute herself.
Yeah, Barbara, you need to unmute yourself.
Oh, she's on her phone. So I wonder, how do you do that on a phone?
No.
I think she's, if she gets
There.
the, oh,
There, I got it.
You did it, okay, good.
First, I have a question about Melvin Hazen. In the paper this morning, they were talking about changing the name, and I'm on the history listserv, and someone else mentioned another name. Are they taking that into consideration?
I can speak to that a little bit also. One of my former neighbors, Chuck Ludlam, was one of the
Yes.
contributors to the article. Yeah, so he's
Yeah.
a big proponent of renaming it Catawba Creek, which is a type of grape that used to be grown in that area back when it was a vineyard. And there was also a Rock Creek Conservancy event last week that I listened into, and I have the recording, which I could forward to the group if anyone's interested. That was on the history of Melvin Hazen. So basically, I mean, it was highly involved in the process of basically taking the property of African Americans who had settled in Reno City, which is where Fort Reno is now. And if you've read the article, you know Chuck's position on it. Some of the historians on the call had slightly different views, whether or not he was the ringleader or whatnot, but he was certainly involved. And there's just a big discussion going on right now about whether or not to rename the creek. And I would assume that it would happen.
Yeah, another name came through of William Beckett, an African American. So I just wondered what the status was about renaming it. So
I think there's going to be a big discussion going on.
This is why I suggest we not get into signs for the Linnaean project. So
My understanding of Reno City is it was not just African Americans, colored people, but there were also poor white people. And it was an integrated neighborhood where houses was very small, lots were small, houses were very close to each other in high density, and people didn't like that. But I have a cousin who attended Woodrow Wilson High School, now lives in Chicago, who told me about the history of that area. So it was an ugly piece of Ward 3 history. I mean, the removal, the destruction of that community because people disapproved of people living that way and wanted to have a park on the one hand and ultimately a high school and maybe some other buildings, seems to have been one of the uglier pieces of Ward 3 history.
Yeah, I would really suggest listening through the event, and I'll send that recording to this email list. It was really interesting, and they have gone through the historical records and have more information on it. It's really interesting to listen to. It was about an hour, so I'll send that to you guys.
Okay, thanks. Barbara?
Yeah, I don't have too much to report because the Streets and Sidewalks Committee is meeting this coming Wednesday on, I think, preparing a resolution on what to do about the traffic study. And I have also shared with them the article about the rock salt on the streets. So that's all I have.
Okay, great. Judy and Marlene, anything more on stormwater?
No, nothing on my part.
Okay,
And nothing on mine. When we're out of the pandemic, I plan to re-engage, try to engage the Capitol Memorial Church about stormwater from their parking lot.
okay. I guess that's the update, which leads me to question, how often do people think we should meet? You could shoot me an email, but I don't know if we need to meet monthly or every other month or every third month, so just something to think about. And announcements. David, I know you have one.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think I was almost going to jump in at this conversation around money, and so I guess I'm not sure if it's a request to you all because it came up in the context when Cecilia was talking about money, and so last year ANC 3F put forth a resolution on the budget, and its focus was on housing. But you all have been pretty active, and the budget includes things for parks and environmental, projects and so on. So I think it's, if this committee wants to put forward a recommendation on funding, this would be a time to do that. I know Streets and Sidewalks is going to be looking at this a little bit, and Housing and Neighborhoods is going to be looking at it. And we've got a new committee, schools and universities, and they are also going to be looking at it. So it doesn't have to happen, but I think it's an opportunity as, we're in the budget season, and, the budget is, really reflect what the city's values are. And so if we've got needs in terms of parks or, this whole notion of, how do we get our project to the top of the list, these sorts of things. This is it's an opportunity for us to weigh in. So I'm just kind of putting that out there. If you all as a committee, again, want to identify some projects or ways to get more money and more resources, this would be a time to do that. And we got Cecilia as a sort of inside expert, and you can be diplomatic about what advice you give us, but am I off, or does that make sense?
Well, I would.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I would say one of our biggest challenges is most of our funding has to be tied to a water quality benefit. So one of the things that I find in particular for Linnaean in Broad Branch, that is a challenge that we lack a dedicated funding source for, is invasive plant management, control, removal. So I'm not sure that I see an overlap. I'm not exactly clear what your funding, is for, how you want to use it, or if you have, ideas for it. But I can tell you right now, that's something we struggle with at DOEE, that we don't have a dedicated program and a dedicated funding source to address invasive plants, which are a major issue in the district. We are piloting a program that is grant funded. So it's very limited in what its scope will be. I have added Linnaean to that list of parks that we would like to see addressed, but I think that's just off the top of my head. that's a gap in funding, if you will. These
Oh, yeah.
stream projects cost, $3 million easily.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
that's a lot of funding that you got to come up with. And we have good pots of money to access for that. So that's kind of my thoughts. That
So I
helps.
guess getting just, if I may, Ms. Chairperson Rosenberg, I guess this,
Who are you talking about?
yeah, I know. I haven't had food, so maybe my blood sugar's low and it's kind of affecting coming out of my mouth. So no, but I guess this idea, the invasive plant removal, is that something that's lots of money, or is it something that's a little bit more modest? And then let's say for conversation's sake, if ANC put in some money and we cobbled together a bunch of resources, that those local monies could be used to leverage your pilot piece. I don't know.
That'd be great. I mean, I know that Rock Creek does a lot of invasive plant removal volunteer activities. You
Yeah.
can just go out there with gloves and hack at it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if there was a little bit more organization and funding behind it, it might be great. Erica?
What kind of funding?
I mean,
How much money?
how much money should we ask for?
Yeah.
For invasives, it seems like that's volunteer driven in part, right? Is there something else that an agency can do?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the biggest thing with invasives is labor. And then
Right.
whenever, ultimately you will need to use a chemical treatment to really combat it. And you need a certified applicator in order to do that. So that comes usually with a price tag.
Okay.
You would want volunteers doing that. So, I mean, I could probably price something out. I could probably price something out a little bit better in a couple of months as this pilot program moves forward. And it might be the kind of thing where, maybe we provide the bodies, maybe DOE provides the expertise and the oversight, but if there are actual volunteers. So again, that's not going to really matter when it comes to budgets, I guess.
Is DOE allowed to receive a grant from the ANC, which is after all, and the ANC's money comes from appropriation from the council, and is it allowed to use that money to make a grant to another agency of isn't there a problem here?
Yes, it sounds like it. I'll look into that, but I would say that that's probably the case. That said, if RCC is in a good position, Rock Creek Conservancy,
Right.
excuse me, is in a good position already to do this, they might be in a position to do that grant at a dedicated site. That might be one way to address it.
And that Rock Creek Conservancy would be eligible for an ANC grant.
Okay, great. I
For
mean, there's no lack of volunteers. I mean, to do the cleanup, it's just whether or not we need more tools or.
Yeah. And again, from a, just speaking from the ANC perspective, I mean, I think it's our job is to support you all. You've got a great committee, you've got lots of volunteers. As we noted earlier, you got a sense of humor. So this is all kind of in your favor. So.
Some of us have.
Oh, right. I stand corrected.
Okay, so what's the time frame for that, David, in terms of getting ideas to you or letters written, or what do we need to do to follow up on that?
I think David Bardin, the emeritus expert, Marlene as well. I think there is a grant application process that we have, and I can still play I'm still relatively new card to not know exactly what that is, but we've given grants before, and I think it's probably putting together a proposal, and then we can
No, I actually meant on the budget.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, so
Sorry.
I think now our performance hearings.
Right.
And budget hearings are coming up later.
Yeah, I think,
there's Melvin Hazen is clear. We can say we want that funded as soon as possible. That's something we can put into testimony. We can also say, Cecilia mentioned money for, invasive removals. I mean, that has happened at Broad Branch and at Linean, but it's also it's not a dedicated funding stream. It's if they can move money around. And Cecilia, you can tell me whether I'm being accurate or not about that. But I basically will contact Cecilia or Steve and say, the streams are a mess. Can you do anything? And that's and then they try to patch something together. And that happened a couple of years ago at Broad Branch, last year at Linean.
Yeah, Marlene, I would like to speak to that. I'm pleased to report that we are actively working on a maintenance contract for our own projects. So Linnea will be covered and Broad Branch will be covered in that aspect. Yes, finally. So we're starting with starting with a pilot project, with a pilot maintenance contract that just covers our own projects that we have installed.
Okay.
Linnea, Broad Branch, and other voluntary installs around the district. That said, there's a larger initiative for DOEE to take on maintenance of stormwater practices, right? And how those are defined. We'll get into that. Probably, of course, it'll include streams. Going forward, this would also roll in DGS stormwater practices, DDOT stormwater practices. I think there's an acknowledgement that DOEE is the technical experts. That said, there's a lot of questions that come with that, right? The budget, the associated budget for that as well. And I think there was really good movement on that prior to COVID, and then everything stalled. Now, I think there's more movement on that now, again, but no promises. So just to recap, we are starting with a small pilot, if you will, contract that covers our projects. So that should be fine. And then where we go from there, we'll see. So don't worry, Linnea will be covered by a maintenance contract. I think the goal is to have it in place by the end of this fiscal year, which is September 30th. That said, my experience with procurement, that's an ambitious goal. I'd like to see it in place by the end of the calendar year. And as you know, in the past, we have utilized a more broad maintenance contract kind of at the end where we say, okay, we have a bunch of extra money. We know these sites need attention and we dispatch. And that's typically the daylily contract that goes out the end of the fiscal year and addresses what they can with what they have remaining. So we want to move away from that and actually take care of these sites.
Terrific. Sounds fabulous.
And so Erica, I don't know if you see what I'm sharing a screen for the budget timeline. Can everybody see that?
Mhm.
So yeah, again, I think, the date to look at is March 31 is when the mayor is supposed to release her budget. I've heard that that's been delayed since this PowerPoint came out. But essentially, this is the budget time, and you can see the time frame. And April they have the hearings, and then May and June is when they have the votes. So we've got some time to think about it. If as a committee you want to kind of sort of noodle over it, and you can, there's all sorts of budget information on the website. And I'm not sure, Cecilia, I'll pick on you again. So who are the advocates at the city level that are looking at your all's budget or the parks budget that are saying, hey, let's do something? Like, for example, the DC Fiscal Policy Institute is all over the housing and human service piece, and you can go to their website and they'll give their opinions about sort of housing stuff and social service programs. But who are the parks people and the other people? Is it, that we could go to these websites and sort of look, what are they saying in terms of recommendations for new parks or whatever it is?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. And I gotta admit that I'm not sure that I am the right person to answer it. So what I can say is when I've watched the budget hearings in the past, there are a few nonprofits that show up repeatedly to speak either in favor of what we're doing or to hold us, hold our feet to the fire and ask us to do a little bit more. So that's the usual suspects, if you will: Rock Creek Conservancy, Casey Trees, Anacostia Watershed Society. But I'd be happy to find out if there is a little more formal process going forward. I will say, in my opinion, I think if DOE were to take on maintenance of stormwater practices, that would be a good thing. Of course, we need the budget to go with it, but we've seen that they really haven't been maintained to date. So I think it would be a good thing for DOE to get that job.
Thanks, Eric, for letting me butt in.
Okay, I think, I'm not sure we have a plan for coming up with ideas and sort of, but maybe you and I can talk about that, or people can submit some ideas if they have them. But we will ponder the budget. Anybody have anything else? Should we adjourn?
I agree.
I agree.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Erica,
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you in a month or two. Yeah,
Thank you, Cecilia, for coming.
okay.
Thanks for having me. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Cecilia, Mitch, and
Thank you.
everybody. Okay, take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.